So our presentation is a virtual field trip across the Bonavista Peninsula in northeastern Newfoundland. The title, A Trail of Discovery Through the Musgrave Town Group, refers to the highway system that loops around the Bonavista Peninsula, and it's called the Discovery Trail. And the Discovery Geopark on Bonavista received UNESCO status in 2020, quite recently. So the Bonavista Peninsula is positioned just north and slightly west, of the better known Avalon Peninsula, from which Avalonia gets its name. So let's go to Bonavista. Okay, so our focus is on the Musgrave Town Group, and that's a volcano-sedimentary unit that sits above the Flysch-dominated or turbiditic connecting point group shown here in brown. So to look at the base, we're going to go to Southern Bay Head, which is shown on the map there between Cape Harbor and Southern Bay. And we're going to look at the west side first and then the east side of that peninsula before proceeding up section through some of the units. Just to put the units in context, the basal unit of the Musgrave Town Group is called the Cannings Cove Formation, and it only outcrops locally. The Bull Arm Formation is the volcanic dominated unit that elsewhere is at the base of the Musgrave Town Group. And then above that, we go into the Rocky Harbor Formation, which is what Dave is going to focus on. And then at the top of the Musgrave Town Group is the red bed dominated coarse clastic, mainly Crown Hill Formation. So this is Southern Bay Head, and you can see a fault going across northwesterly across the northernmost part of the peninsula. So we'll look at the west side first and then the east side. So here, looking to the east, we can see the lowermost basalt of the Musgrave Town Group, which is in fault contact with the underlying thin bedded connecting point group strata. And we dated a tuff in this area with Greg Dunning that came out at 605 MA ±2. So round to the other side now, looking west, we can see this angular unconformity between the steeply dipping connecting point group strata that the student is standing on and the shallowly north dipping conglomerates of the Cannings Cove Formation. So let's just go a little farther north, and intercalated with the conglomerates are calc-alkaline basalts and this tuff unit, which we dated here at 600 MA. So now we're going to head a little bit south around the Indian Arm Fault, shown IAF on the map. And the rock association here is different. We don't see a lot of those conglomerates here. We see a lot of thin-bedded fine sandstones and silts to mudstone, and some tuffs intercalated. And this tuff here at this road cut was dated at 592 ±2. And you can see in the cross section above that there's basalts below and above this tuff, and the whole section is capped by rhyolites to the north. So this is what some of the rocks within this dominantly bimodal unit look like. Massive to amygdaloidal basalt overlain by locally banded rhyolite and pyroclastic rocks. But there is a small component of intermediate rocks here, such as these spectacularly columnar jointed andesites here. So next we're going to move farther east to the dam pond area. So this is sort of at the core of a broad dome, and the basalts in this area are flanked by sandstones, which fine-grained sandstones, which in turn are overlain by the diamictites, known on Bonavista Vista as the Trinity facies. So, and that's just across the strat column sort of shows where we are within the Musgrave Town Group. So the basalt here, these are alkaline basalts, and they're interbedded with siltstones. You can see the overlying siltstone dipping shallowly to the east as we view to the north here. And there's a lot of basalt breccias in the area. You can see flow banding in this clast. And next we're going to go up section, but move down to the southwestern part of the Bonavista Peninsula and have a look at the British Harbour area. So here, these basalts are again massive, but locally phenocrystic and overlain by lapilli tuffs and agglomerates locally. And these occur near the top of the Rocky Harbour Formation. You can see above the sandstones are kind of pinkish gray. And here we can see the cross stratification in the sandstone, and then basalt breccia with between the fragments, you can see the red sort of jasper. And there's a lot of hematite in this area as well, occurring in veinlets and clots. And now we're going to have a look at the Trinity facies in one of the best localities to see it, at New Bonaventure. So this unit was first recognized by Leon Normore in 2011, and he isolated some striated clasts from it. He recognized these flat iron clasts, such as in the top left photo. He noticed the drop stones and pointed all these things out and proposed that perhaps it would be, this unit could be correlative to the Gaskers formation on Avalon Peninsula. Okay, and Dave's going to tell you more.
All right, thanks, Andrea. So this Trinity diamictite, so following Leon's work, Pugh et al. Came and dated tubes below and above, I believe, and demonstrated that the diamictite here is correlative, or at least its age equivalent to the Gaskers diamictite elsewhere in the Avalon. And so bringing you now to along the Discovery Trail Highway near the Trinity Pond. And here we see another correlative diamictite. This location is looking a little different. It overlies cross-stratified braided fluvial sediments sharply but conformably. And the massive texture you can see in the middle picture here suggests that this was more of a tillite or perhaps a debris flow sort of happening in a subglacial or periglacial position. Upwards in this unit, we see more laminations. This is in the lower photograph with similar dropstone features. So we're looking at something that possibly went subglacial to proglacial, and then that's subsequently overlain by Varvy lacustrine sediments, at least in this location. Moving now up to the northern Bonavista Peninsula near Cape Bonavista, and looking at some other potential glacial features here. Here we see, mostly coarse-grained arcosic sandstone with some pebbles and some pebble conglomerates as well. A lot of features here sort of suggestive of what we see on a modern outwash plain, the Yakulips in Iceland, for example. So the laminae themselves are very sharp and varvy, suggesting seasonal sedimentation cycles. We have some enigmatic brittle deformation of these beds that are truncated by internal stratification, which suggests that it's happening near the surface in soft sediment conditions, but that the sediment itself is bound by some kind of cement, and we think that may be ice. And then the cross stratification that forms, as well as some of these graded beds that you see in the panel above and below respectively, relates to these catastrophic outwash events, forming supercritical bed form stratification and graded beds from density flows. Taking you now a little bit to the west towards Keels, near the Blackhead Bay here, number 9. Here we see strata within the Rocky Harbor Formation that shows more of a marine influence. And specifically here, we're looking at similar types of compositions of our coasts. But here we see things like bidirectional flow. In the top panel, you can see migration in one direction towards the left, and the bottom you see something migrating towards the right. The middle panel, you can see there's some cross stratification with a mud drape, and then at the base you can see basically these really spectacular mega ripples. So we're seeing the influence potentially of waves and tides, you know, and what we think are these sort of outwash or periglacial environments. So finally moving to Kings Cove, here we have a succession, a conformable succession exposed in the northern coast of Kings Cove. At its base are Varvy looking mudstones and clays, and with really tight grain size partitioning, again, which probably relates to seasonal sedimentation. We think in a lacustrine environment, so quite likely or possibly a proglacial lake. And that grades upwards then into things like at the lower panel, which is coarser grained and more heterolithic, high energy sedimentation. Here we can see starved mega ripples. So again, we're seeing the influence of waves here locally. But overall, this progradation perhaps resulting from post-glacial rebound. At present, many of the pieces of the Rocky Harbor Formation here aren't really put together stratigraphically. That's ongoing work, but we think this all fits really well within a glacial or periglacial setting. With that, I'll give you back to Andrea.
Thanks, Dan. So overall, I think what we're seeing, and particularly with the age constraints by Judy Poo and others on the Trinity facies, we're finding that Art King's model shown on the expressed in the upper cross section here, it doesn't really work because both the Gaskers, which occurs near the base of the conception group shown CG, is the same age as the Trinity facies, which is above the Bull Arm Formation BAF. So there's an earlier proposed model, that of W.D. Bruckner in 1977, and he recognized potential tillites, he called them, within the Musgrave Town group, and proposed that they could be correlative to the Gaskers, and it seems he was correct. So with that, just like everyone to take a look at our guidebook, because there's a lot more details in the guidebook, and I'd like to acknowledge the geoscientists that worked on Bonavista before us, namely Leon Normore, but also Sean O'Brien and Art King, and Greg Dunning, who's provided ongoing collaborative work in terms of geochronology, and to say thank you. Is that okay? Yeah, I didn't hear the